Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and I'm here today to kick off a new vlog making my way over the river. As I was starting to consider what themes I could do for December that weren't entirely all Christmas, but still kind of were in that holiday vibe, two books made their way onto my TBR pretty much simultaneously. And that was Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel, and this came in an Illumicrate box. And at the same time, I got A Song to Drown a River by Anne Ling, and this was a gifted copy from St. Martin's Press. And the two river words jumped out at me, and it put in mind the old song, poem, whatever it was, over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. And back in the olden days when my grandparents were still around, that would always pop in my head because we'd always be going to their house for Christmas dinner. And I live in Los Angeles. There's no rivers here. There's no real woods here where I live, but the theme still stuck in my head, and I have a bunch of river books that I really want to get to. So I built myself a little bit of a TBR. So for the two I already mentioned, Goddess of the River is a myth retelling of Ganga, the goddess of the river, and her human son. And A Song to Drown Rivers is a retelling as well, this one about Zishi, who is one of the famed beauties of China, and her beautiful face is used as a political weapon, kind of, it sounds like. And then pulling one from my horror bingo reading challenge from Sarah Wicked Reading, I have A River of Ashes by Alexandra Weiss and Lucas Astor. And the idea with this prompt that I'm using this for is that you go into the book knowing nothing about it. So I really don't know anything about it other than the cover really is stunning and caught my eye. And then for a bit of a mystery, I have Knife River by Justine Champagne, and this one was a gifted copy from Dial Press. And this is following some women, it sounds like, whose mother disappeared when they were children and nothing was ever found until maybe there's some new information now. And then last but not least, I have a little bit of a twist on the river concept, and that's a creek. This is The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal. This is set in the town of Bleak Creek, I believe, and there is a reform school for troubled children, but this school seems to be very successful, but also to produce a weird number of accidents and dead children. So I am eager to pick this one up as well. And this is a gifted copy from Broadway Books and Random House. So with these, I am eager to get into some river reading, and I will be back with you as soon as I've started with some initial thoughts. I'm here because I am now at 53% in Knife River by Justine Champagne and have some thoughts. So I went into this one expecting kind of slow burn mystery, and it definitely has that element, but I would say a lot of it really is family and even relationship drama going on more so than the actual mystery. The premise of this one, we're following Jess, and when she was 13 years old, her mother went missing, and she and her older sister Liz never got answers to what happened until years and years later, the body has been found. Jess leaves her girlfriend behind. She goes back to Knife River to be there to try to get answers, and answers are slow in coming, and she finds herself kind of getting back into the swing of things of Knife River and kind of forgetting the life she's had outside of that. And she's a messy character. I don't really like the way she deals with her relationships. She has an old girlfriend from high school that she winds up hooking back up with, and this is a very conservative place. Things are kept under wraps. The old girlfriend is not at all out. She is keeping this relationship under lock and key, and so is Jess. She's got a girlfriend back home. So that part of it I'm not necessarily loving. I'm intrigued to see what we're going to find out about the mother, and I think the opening of this was really strong. The kind of atmosphere, the way that these children just kind of stumbled upon these bones, and I am hoping that the mystery element in here winds up making this something that I am going to enjoy. We're seeing a lot of the relationship dynamics between the sisters, a lot of the kind of relationship dynamics of Jess and these other women, so I'm not sure. I have kind of mixed thoughts at this stage, but I will let you know once I get to the end and how I wind up finding this. I'm back because I have finished Knife River, and overall this was okay. It didn't fully suck me in at any point. I really wanted a good mystery to dig into, and I feel like that took such a backseat to the rest of the story, the relationships, the kind of way these women are interacting with each other in romantic relationships and the sisterly relationships, the idea of how well did they know their mother way back when and what might have happened back then gets discussed, but it's not so much the mystery taking center stage that I thought it would be. We do slowly get more information about the body and the forensics that are slowly starting to come back, and that offers a few clues here and there, but I feel like in the end we do get answers, or our main character does anyway, and I feel like in some ways she kind of stumbled into that as opposed to actually investigating and figuring it out so much, and that just wasn't how I wanted this to go. So I think in the end this is a 3-star read for me. I think it was well written. I think it just set out to do something different than what I expected it to do, and it didn't quite 100% land for me, with, again, probably going in with the wrong expectations. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave this one here and hope my next read is a 5-star. I am making my way down another river with Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel, and this one tells the story of Ganga, who is the goddess of the river. And she was a goddess. She replied to humans who were praying basically for her to come down. When she did, she was trapped, and she became trapped as the river. At one point, she does get a human form. She marries a king. She has to have children with him, and she winds up getting freed from her curse but having to leave her human son behind. And then this leads into what we know from the very beginning is going to become a war or a battle, because there's kind of countdown labels on each chapter. Like this one says it's many decades before the war. So we know that's kind of coming out. She is very often, aside from when she's in human form, watching from afar. She only knows what's going on in the human world when people come close to her waters as part of the river. And so we're following her son's story once we get that far, from a bit of a remove and learning about what he has been up to. This one does everything it says in the synopsis. Basically, I feel like since I read the synopsis, I know the path of the story, but I think it's done well. I think the writing's really good. I'm finding the characters engaging. I think the author is doing a good job of keeping this very interesting. I've been very burned out on kind of myth retelling, and I was worried that this would kind of fall into that, but because this is a story I'm not as familiar with, and a culture and background that I don't have as much information about in just my general knowledge, like when it comes to reading a Greek myth retelling, which I've heard before, I'm finding this much more engaging. I wouldn't necessarily say it's got me 100% hooked in the sense that I'm expecting the story to take twists and turns, but I think we're getting a lot of character depth here, and her feelings about her son and what her son is doing in the human world are really interesting, and the way that impacts her decisions and her kind of abilities as a goddess, but within limited bounds, makes things very interesting as well for me. So I flew through the first half of this, actually went over where I meant to go and stop. I'm at 55% now, so I think this will be a really easy one to keep reading. I've been enjoying the audiobook for it quite a lot because it's helping with pronunciations and just getting me fully immersed in the story as I keep the physical copy in front of me as well. So I'm going to keep doing that and be back once I've finished. I'm back with final thoughts for Goddess of the River, and overall I like this. I didn't ever fall in love with it. I think we get a lot of insights into this character, this goddess, this river, and I like that. I like the way we were in her head and the female focus of it all. I think the writing was really well done. I think it just wasn't exactly a plot-driven book, which maybe I was more so in the mood for at the moment. This very much was character development and the mythology and the mythos behind this goddess and the river that she was, and her relationship with her human son. And I think all of that was really well done. I lost a little bit of attention toward the end and kind of had to rewind a couple times just because I was finding it easier to zone out than I wanted to be. But overall, I think this one's getting a 4-star for me. I think it really was well written. This is an author I for sure will pick up more from in the future, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to pick this one up. Well, as I was trying to decide what book to pick up next on my river journey, I got a Skip the Line copy of A Song to Drown Rivers. And the Skip the Line audiobook means that I only have 7 days to finish the book, so I figured Libby made the decision for me. In this book, we're following Zishi, who is a very beautiful young woman. So much so that she hides her face when she goes out of the house, and does that to try not to attract too much attention. While she's out one day, she sees a young girl being harassed by a man. This young girl is clearly impoverished. She's maybe taken something because she's desperate, and this man is going to kill her. Zishi steps in to try to save her, and then another man enters the scene and takes up the cause and winds up saving the young girl, giving her some money, sending her off. There's an immediate attraction between Zishi and this man, but she goes on her way, and that seems to be the end of things. Until this man comes to the door. Turns out he works for the king, or the king who's been recently taken out of power by an invading king, and they are looking for the most beautiful girl in order to give her as a bride, essentially, to the new king. And she'll be trained in a way to make the king basically fall for her, do whatever she wants, and allow her to stand up for and help her original country. This is also a way to provide for her family because the king has promised to take care of them. It's also a way for her to get revenge because this invading army killed her sister, and she is still not over that, obviously. So this is really engaging. I've gotten into it very quickly and flown through the first half already. At this point, we've basically seen her make the decision to go. We've seen her and a friend go through the training process to learn all of the things that women of a higher class know. They are from a very poor village. She washes silk. That's how her family makes a living. So things like playing musical instruments and knowing how to act at a formal dinner, these are things that she has to be trained in, and mostly we've been seeing that. At the halfway point, she is now with the king and beginning to work on getting him hooked on her. And I'm enjoying seeing what she brings to it. Getting to follow along in her head and see things through her perspective have been really interesting. There's also an issue where she has some sort of a heart condition, a heart pain. When she's with this man that she met at the beginning of the book, that goes away. So obviously we're heading towards a love connection there, I'm assuming, from the very beginning. And it was very insta-lovey, which is not something I necessarily like in a book, but they don't have the ability to act on it. So I think we're still going to get some slow burn type action happening in here. So I'm intrigued to see where the rest of the book goes. It is a very pretty edition that I received from St. Martin's Press. It has a sticker inside because I picked this one for my Prom Ball TBR game this month. And yeah, it's just a nice book. So I'm enjoying this one. I'm going to go ahead and continue on with it this morning and see what my final thoughts will be. I'm back with some river updates for you. I did actually get out of the house this weekend and saw what might have to pass for a river in Los Angeles. It at least was a pond with some artificially rushing waters going into the pond. But, you know, we'll take what we can get. The Los Angeles River, which is a thing, near me at least, is completely dry 99% of the year. When we get some rain, if we get a good storm in, sometimes it can fill up. But that doesn't last very long. So we'll take our nature where we can find it in Los Angeles. On the reading front, while I was out and about, and then when I got home, I finished up A Song to Drown Rivers. And I actually really enjoyed this one. It's extremely melancholy. It didn't quite go the romance direction I expected from it. And I wound up really liking that about it. We're spending our time in Zishin's head, and I liked the way we saw her struggling with some of the choices that she was being asked to make. And there's a very, just like I said, melancholy feel to the story as a whole. This isn't one I would recommend you pick up if you're looking for a perfectly tied up fantasy romance, happily ever after type of story. But I think if you like a good retelling, a good history or mythology inspired fantasy fiction, I think this is one I would definitely recommend. It wound up being a strong 4-star read for me, and I really enjoyed my time. And while I'm at it, I also am halfway into my next book. So I'm now just about at the halfway point of The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek. This is by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal. And this is a gifted copy I received from Broadway Books, which is part of Random House. This is firmly set in the 90s. There's references to things that definitely ground it there, like hypercolor t-shirts and wanting to breathe on someone's t-shirt to change the color. And the kind of main characters that we're following in different ways have video recorders, very old-fashioned cameras by our modern standards, and things like that. We're following a couple different people. One is a set of two young boys, preteen, I think, if I'm guessing their ages kind of right, but they and their friend Alicia were making a movie, a poltergeist dog, and got into some trouble at a public event, filming in public. And as a result, the boys kind of get a slap on the wrist. The daughter gets taken away to the Bleak Creek School for Troubled Children, and this place is no joke. They do school 7 days a week, everything's beige. They get punished in a very cruel and inappropriate way for doing anything out of turn. Their identities are stripped from them. They're not allowed to form relationships. This is a rough place. We also know that some children in the past have died there. We're also following a NYU film student named Janine, and she came to town with the idea of making a documentary about kidney stones. And that quickly takes a turn when she learns about this home school, whatever it may be, for troubled children. And the rumors surrounding it, the secrecy surrounding it, the fact that students who have gone there in the past just kind of have a rote way of saying, it was good for me. And yet their entire personalities and their entire existence has changed in their time there. So this has been a lot of setup to the halfway point, to getting to know our characters, to getting to know what the rumors are, and the fact that these rumors are very much kept under wraps in this town, and the fear that people have about this place, and potentially the pressure to send children there. So it's taken a little bit for me to get engaged, but I am extremely intrigued about what's going on. We're starting to see kind of behind the scenes at the school some things that are happening, and they have me very interested to continue. So I will be back once I finish this one with some final thoughts for you. I'm back because I have finished The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek, and I had some mixed feelings about this one. I did like the way some of the darker elements came in later in the story, and the kind of twists, I guess, to what was happening at Bleak Creek School. That said, I'm not sure I really ever fully 100% connected with our characters. We have, like I had said, the two kind of young boy characters. I think they're called out as being 14 later in the book, and there's kind of a subplot between them of jealousy over this girl that they both like, that they're friends with, that I didn't necessarily feel was needed. And then our other character, Janine, is a college student, and I liked her more and being in her head more, and the way she kind of jumped into things, but she also felt on the very young side. So to me, this was definitely a little bit of a younger YA kind of story, I would say. It definitely goes dark places. There's definitely topics of loss and grief as parents, and decisions parents are making and adults are making, but we are spending the majority of the story with the children. And I think that wasn't exactly what I expected. I did like the horror elements that we get into as we get further in the story. I think it just took a little bit too much setup initially for me before we got to kind of those darker twists and turns. So this one wound up being a 3-star for me, or maybe I think a 3.5, but not necessarily a new favorite read. Still glad I picked it up, and I'm glad to going ahead and moving on to my next book for the River Vlog. I'm back because I made it 60% of the way into River of Ashes by Alexandra Weiss and Lucas Astor. And so far, this is not really hitting for me. We are following a group of teenagers, and every Friday they go partying in this old abandoned seminary and get up to a lot of drinking and a lot of bad things. The chief among the bad is this boy named Bo, and he is a manipulator, he's a rapist, he is a just all-around bad guy. The book synopsis, now that I've read it, describes him as a psychopath, and yes, that seems valid. We're following two sisters. One of them thinks she's in love with this boy and thinks he can do no wrong. Her sister knows he's horrible and knows that he does inappropriate things. He says horrible things to her, and she knows he can't possibly be treating her sister very well, and there's a lot of relationship drama there. Everyone in town loves Bo. Their parents love Bo, or at least her mother does. So there's a lot of teen relationship angst going on, plus a lot of the manipulating and sexual assault and abuse and all of that kind of happening on page. I wouldn't say it's overly graphic, but it is happening on page. You do know what's going on, and these girls are being horribly mistreated and raped and drugged or given a lot to drink. And that's not quite the horror I was hoping for in here. I was hoping a little more supernatural would be going on. And now at the 60% mark, it has taken some extra dark turns, so I think maybe it could go in a different direction. I don't think this is a book that's going to be a big win for me, but it's a really easy listen. Hoopla had the audiobook, so I've just been listening at work, and I probably will go ahead and finish it up today. So wanted to give you a midway update before I did so. Okay, it is later the same evening, and I have now finished River of Ashes, and unfortunately this just never hooked me in. And I think that was just a me issue with expectations and what I was looking for from this. I think it very much remained focused on the fact that this was a bad guy. This Beau guy was just bad. And the synopsis describes him as a psychopath, and yes, I think he was. And I think his focus on causing harm to women and raping women, I think the author very clearly, or the authors very clearly, had a message they wanted to get across. And that comes through also in the author's note at the end. The author talks about rape culture and her own kind of experiences growing up where it wasn't talked about. It's a shameful subject. It's something that's kept secret. And I appreciate that because all of that is very true. It's just not something that I wanted to focus on for the entirety of this book, and to be seeing the way this man enjoyed doing these things, or this boy really, and to be in his head as he's doing these things. And I appreciated kind of the revenge mission we get. I appreciated the feelings of the characters that get discussed after the fact. I think all of those things were handled well. I think it just didn't ever click in for me. So I'm giving this one 3 stars. Again, not a bad book. I think it just didn't quite hit what I was hoping for and my expectations from the synopsis. So with that, I have now completed my journey over the river and had a decent time. Definitely did not have as many hits as I would have liked, but also did have a really good time with a few of these books. Surprising no one more than me, my favorites out of this bunch are the 2 historical fantasies. I went into the vlog thinking that I was in the mood for some mystery, for some horror, and who knows, apparently not me when it comes to what I will like. Historical at the moment is just kind of a scary concept to me, but historical fantasy is still working really well for the most part for me. So I am glad that I had my 2 river books, the 2 that actually inspired this whole vlog concept, wound up being the biggest win of the week. So with that, let me know your thoughts down below. Have you read any of these or any of these on your TBR? Do you have any river setting type books that you want to recommend to me? And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, give me a water emoji of some sort. Really appreciate you being here. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate that as well. And subscribe if you're interested in more of my vlog themes, more of my conflicting thoughts on books, and more of my bookish content in general. For now, I will go ahead and leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.